You hear a recording of yourself. You wince. That's not what I sound like, you think. But it is. It always was. So why does your own voice feel like a stranger's? Most people assume it's a bad microphone or a bad recording, but the real answer is far stranger. Your brain has been lying to you about your own voice since the day you learned to speak, and it never told you. Think about the last voice memo you sent. Think about the video where you heard yourself laugh. Did you cringe? Almost everyone does. There's even a name for it: voice confrontation. Psychologists Phil Holzman and Clyde Rousey first described this in the 1960s, when they played people recordings of their own speech and watched the reaction ripple across their faces. Discomfort, denial, sometimes outright rejection. This isn't you, people would say. This can't be me. But it is you. So what's going on? Here's the part nobody explains clearly enough. When you speak, sound reaches your ears in two separate ways at the same time. One path travels through the air, out of your mouth, bouncing around the room, into your ear canal, same as any other sound. The other path never leaves your body at all. It moves through your skull, through bone, through tissue, straight to your inner ear, skipping the outside world entirely. Bone conduction changes everything about the sound. Dense material, like the bone in your skull, carries low frequencies more efficiently than air does. So the voice you hear when you speak is thickened, deepened, warmed by your own skeleton. It sounds fuller, richer, more resonant than the version everyone else hears, because everyone else only gets the air-conducted version. Thinner, higher, less flattering by comparison to what you're used to. Your brain has spent your entire life building your self-image around that internal, bone-boosted voice. Every conversation, every argument, every whispered joke to a friend, all of it filtered through the bass boost of your own skull. Then a recording strips that away and hands you back a stranger. Higher pitched, thinner, unfamiliar. No wonder you flinch. But bone conduction is only half the story. There's a second reason the sound feels wrong, and it has nothing to do with acoustics at all. It has to do with expectation. Neuroscientist Sophie Scott, who has spent years studying the human voice at University College London, points out that hearing yourself speak involves something called efference copy. When your brain sends a command to your mouth to produce speech, it simultaneously sends a prediction to your auditory system about what that speech should sound like. Your brain, in effect, pre-hears you before you even finish the sentence. It's constantly comparing the incoming sound to its own internal forecast. That's efficient. That's how you catch your own mistakes mid-sentence, how you adjust your volume without thinking, how you know instantly if you've mispronounced a word. But it also means your entire perception of your own voice is a prediction, not a raw recording. You don't hear yourself the way a microphone hears you. You hear a constantly updated guess, tuned by decades of internal feedback. A recording breaks that loop entirely. There's no prediction involved, no bone conduction, no live correction, just air-conducted sound, played back after the fact, with none of the internal machinery that shaped your expectations in the first place. The mismatch between what your brain forecast and what your ears actually receive isn't subtle. It's jarring enough to register as a small, involuntary alarm. Is that alarm just about sound, though? Or is it about identity? Psychologist Silke Pullman, who studies vocal emotion and identity at the University of Essex, has noted that voice is deeply tied to self-perception in a way most people never consciously register. Your voice isn't just a physical signal. It's bundled with memories of every time you've used it, every apology, every joke that landed, every argument you wish you'd worded differently. When a recording plays that voice back at an unfamiliar pitch, it doesn't just sound off. It creates a small crack between the self you imagine and the self other people actually encounter. That gap matters more than it seems. Studies on self-perception consistently find that people rate their own recorded voice as less pleasant, less confident, and less attractive than voices belonging to others, even when outside listeners rate that same recording as perfectly normal. You're not hearing an accurate voice and reacting badly. You're hearing an unfamiliar voice and reacting the way anyone reacts to a mismatch between expectation and reality. There's an evolutionary layer buried underneath all of this too. Recognizing your own vocalizations mattered enormously long before recording devices existed. Early humans needed reliable self-monitoring to regulate volume during a hunt, to modulate tone during a negotiation, to catch a slip of the tongue before it escalated a conflict. A voice recognition system built entirely on live, bone-conducted, prediction-corrected feedback made total evolutionary sense. Nobody needed a system built for played-back audio, because played-back audio didn't exist for the overwhelming majority of human history. Your brain wasn't designed with tape decks in mind, so the discomfort you feel isn't a flaw. It's a mismatch between an ancient monitoring system and a modern piece of technology it was never built to process. Here's where it gets stranger still. This mismatch fades with exposure. Voice actors, podcasters, and public speakers who hear recordings of themselves constantly report that the cringe diminishes over time. The brain recalibrates. It builds a second internal model, one tuned specifically to the air-conducted, recorded version of your voice, running alongside the original bone-conducted model you've relied on since childhood. Familiarity doesn't erase the acoustic difference. It just teaches your brain to stop treating the recorded voice as an intruder, which raises an odd question about identity itself. If your sense of your own voice is really just a prediction, your brain updates constantly, how much of your entire self-image works the same way? Your reflection in a mirror is flipped left to right, an inversion you've adapted to without ever noticing. Photographs freeze expressions you never see on your own face in real time, since a mirror only shows you already composed reactions. Even your memories of past conversations are reconstructions, edited slightly every time you recall them, not perfect recordings. Every internal model you carry of yourself, voice included, is a working draft, constantly revised, never quite matching the raw, external version other people encounter. That's the real reframe, hiding inside a cringing reaction to a voice memo. It isn't really about audio quality. It's a small, everyday reminder that the person you think you are and the person others actually meet are built from two different data streams, updated on two different schedules, and only loosely reconciled. So the next time you hear a recording of yourself and wince, remember what's actually happening. It isn't a bad microphone. It isn't a flaw in your voice. It's a 500,000-year-old monitoring system encountering a 100-year-old piece of technology and briefly failing to recognize an old friend. You hear a recording of yourself. You wince. But it isn't a stranger's voice at all. It's simply the one version of you that your own skull was never built to hear.